Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I finally wanted to give my review on Zeri, our newest champion added to the game, and I really feel like Zeri is one of the most polarizing champions I think I've seen in quite some time now. And I think primarily this is because no one knows how good she really is yet. Like, I feel like generally speaking, people kind of know off the bat how good a specific champion is pretty soon after their release, right? The assumption is either they're really good or they're really bad, or maybe they're mediocre and Riot are going to give them some changes a little bit later. But like generally speaking, I feel like after, even the first day, people kind of know exactly where the newest champions are at. And Zeri has not been like that. I feel like for some people, Zeri has looked like this unstoppable powerhouse of a champion that can do everything and has no weaknesses whatsoever, where other people have found that Zeri is exceedingly weak. And now the latter is probably more accurate to a lot of people's depictions. Zeri has something like a 43% win rate after a few days of play. Which, look, people are still learning the champion. I don't think 43 is that bad in the grand scheme of things. I really do feel like that just means that people are still learning to play the champion to a certain extent. But it is indicative of why people think that there's so much of a difference in how this champion works, right? Because you do have, pros or elite players, like the Yeon clip that I'll have to have linked down in the description, where he just absolutely goes crazy on Zeri. And then you have, people playing regular games who try to do the same thing and they're just not able to get the same amount of success. And it's very odd for a champion like this, but it's because Zeri does so many things that champions just kind of don't do in League of Legends and breaks so many of the rules of League of Legends. One of I would say, the most core fundamentals of League of Legends, which is that your auto attacks are 100% reliable sources of damage, and you can't mess that up, right? Zeri turns all of that on its head, and it now gains a ton of advantages in exchange for losing the reliability, right? Her auto attacks have essentially 850 range because of how her Q works, and she does multiple instances of damage. There's just a lot about Zeri that ends up looking really, really powerful as a result of her auto attacks not being reliable. But it does mean that if you're bad at Zeri, for example, and you can't hit shots, that you're going to look significantly weaker than a player who can hit shots, right? Or you're going to look significantly weaker on Zeri than you would look on any other AD carry, where all you have to do is right-click a champion and you get free damage, right? There's nothing to be paid for it, versus Zeri, who every single time you auto-attack, you have to be paying attention to it, which is one of the things, one of the reasons I think Zeri is kind of a polarized champion, or polarized release here, is because she lacks that reliability and because she sort of has this very differing playstyle. As a result of this kind of skew, like I think Zeri has one of the highest skill ceilings of any champion in the game. I honestly would say this, because of just the different ways to optimize her and the different things you have to worry about, right? Like Zeri is the kind of champion that you can't really ever turn your brain off and just right-click champions. You have to be lining up every single shot. Like, I've missed wards just because I'm used to put mouse on ward, auto attack ward, leave, right? But you literally can't do that. Every single time you go to auto attack with this champion, you have to be paying active attention, which is like something you don't see, right? Like League of Legends, a lot of times you can kind of turn the brain off. Okay, I'm last hitting a wave. I right-click the wave, and I can AFK, basically, and my champion will just kind of kill it for me. Or doing Drake, right? I right-click the Drake, and my champion just kind of kills it. But you literally don't get to do that on this champion just because of you have to aim, right? But it's the kind of thing then that because you have this ability to optimize this and just do some really crazy things, I think you end up in a situation where you have the ability to pop off really, really hard, which is kind of nice. So let's go ahead. I know we normally do like a bad and good thing, and I do think that Zeri has a lot of both. And partially one of them is the fact that her skill floor is exceedingly high. I think that this champion, part of the reason why she had such a low win rate is because her skill floor is really high. You have to be lining up shots. You have to sort of comprehend how her kit is intended to work. A big part of her mobility isn't having a million dashes, honestly. I know that's kind of like been the standard for high mobilities. You have a bunch of low cooldown dashes, like Kalista, I would say, is like the poster child of having a lot of dashes and having a lot of mobility, but Zeri's mobility is all movement based, which means that you don't actually have to have a million dashes on the kit in order to make that work, but at the same time, a lot of that movement speed is tied in with her ultimate and being able to build up stacks, which means that even though this champion is balanced around having high mobility and having a good threat range, if you're not able to figure out how to get that mobility online or figure out how to make that damage work for you, you're gonna end up in a situation where Zeri ends up feeling really frustrating to play, and you get giga punished because Zeri has, I think, one of the lowest base healths in the game right now, and exceedingly low resist as well. Like, Zeri dies, I think, faster than like any other marksman in the game if she starts taking damage, which is one of those things that then like you get punished if you're not able to use her tools to their fullest extent. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. I would say that's maybe one of the bad things here. But so the good, I think, is that Zeri has high mobility without a million dashes. Like, she has to be able to build up the ult stacks and eventually have enough movement speed that her dash is an emergency tool instead of the sum total of her mobility, which is pretty nice. I do think that the way Q works, it's less annoying to deal with than I initially expected, and your pre-built habits of right-clicking between an auto-attack-like ability, it works just as well as it does on other champions. And this means that Burst Fire, despite literally being the character's auto attack, still feels like a Viego or Yone or Yasuo Q that the gameplay works, right? Where you Q someone and then you follow up for a right click for a burst of damage and a slow if you're playing Zeri as well, right? That's kind of nice. And being able to auto attack without line of sight is massive. Which is because you don't actually have to maintain that, right? You can face check, or you don't have to face check. You can fire shots in the bush, and if you hit something, okay, cool, you know you don't need to go in that bush, right? There's some kind of fun play there. And Zeri has an exceptionally high skill ceiling, which is a bad thing if you're trying to get good at her, but it also means that any time you put into Zeri is rewarding, right? Unlike a champion like Garen or Annie, where you can play them for, basically a few dozen games, and you kind of get what these champions are about. You don't have to do anything more with them. Zeri, for hundreds of games, you are going to constantly be improving and learning new things and getting better at this champion, which is a really nice aspect to a champion. I really like it when a champion does reward the time you actually put in to learning them and to making them work and to figuring out exactly what it is that they're supposed to be about. So, really big fan of that in particular. I also think that there are a couple fun combos on the kit. Spark Surge through a wall and firing the Ultra Shock Laser as you come down is a fun combo, and it plays well together because that way you can slide in, they're slowed, you can start landing shots, or you can pop your ultimate and start stacking it immediately as you come out of the wall. That's really nice. And I do think Spark Surge as well, despite being able to go through any terrain, it doesn't feel egregiously strong. You do have to basically, there's like a partial cooldown refund on it, but unless you're building a ton of ability haste, like you really have to depend on the movement speed that Zeri gets inherent in her kit, which is kind of nice. And that means that a lot of her mobility is backloaded in team fights, so unlike Kalista, who the second she's unCC'd, she's dashing a million times, right, or based on her attack speed, Zeri can't do that, right? If Zeri gets caught at the beginning of a fight, and then she gets unCC'd and presses R and has to wait through the R animation and get some movement speed, but there was only one champion nearby, so it's not that much, and she starts stacking, but like it's not going to be enough at the end of the day. And I think Zeri has a lot of potential builds. She can have high attack speed for on-hit builds, she can build crit, she can build AD fighter items like Cleaver and Triforce, which synergize super well with her, and a lot of others. I do think like AP Zeri is pretty bad, but like it is technically an option, so all of these I think are really nice aspects of Zeri. That being said, I think there are some things about Zeri that are a little annoying. I think Burst Fire, despite being simple to use, there's still just like an overwhelming amount of muscle memory that needs to be overcome in order to stop right-clicking everything and just rely on spamming your Q, right? Like you really have to constantly think about your auto attack, which would be something like thinking about breathing almost, right? Like in League of Legends players' terms. Like all of a sudden, something that is so easy and so natural that you never have to think about it at all, you have to consciously make an effort to do and consciously recalibrate it when you get more attack speed, right? Like it just becomes sort of a brain burden issue, especially if you don't play a lot of Zeri and suddenly you have to remember, oh yeah, I have to press a button anytime I want to auto attack. And I do think Zeri's kit is pretty simple, which is a good thing for learning her, but it will make her dull for some players. Like her only real hype moments are sliding through the walls to ambush someone or zipping around with her R stacks on. But like besides that, all Zeri really does is spam Q and look to hit her one skill shot. That's about it, which is not very exciting at all. But despite all this, I think Zeri still has the potential to be a crazy powerful champion. I just really do feel like this because of the way in which she breaks the game. I feel like this champion will see pro play. if there are no major changes to her in the sort of run-up to her availability in pro play, I absolutely think she's going to get played at the pro level. Because, like I said, she's the kind of champion that rewards the time you put in to learn her, and that is 100% what pros value out of their champions, right? If there is something good, the pros will get good at it. If there is something that mechanically requires execution, the pros will figure out a way to mechanically execute on that character and to play them to their absolute best. Which is one of those things then, right, that you have to kind of think about. It is one of the things that I think is why Zeri is going to be so powerful. I think she just has a lot of options. I don't think she's as good as some people are making her out to be. I think, for example, if you have targeted crowd control effects or targeted abilities, you can just kind of shut her down because she's not very durable, and you can't outplay someone putting their mouse on you and pressing the CC button like a Rise, for example. So in that regard, I do think there is a lot of things that can kind of be done to deal with Zeri. But at the same time, I do think that she does have a lot of tools that make her very efficient in pro play, and is the kind of champion that ends up looking very strong when played in a coordinated team environment, which I just feel like she's guaranteed to get played there. I think really that's slightly a concern. I do think as well that one of my other concerns is that Zeri is going to end up being sort of a paradigm shift in how Riot designs their champions. They've already been sort of eroding the auto attack landscape for quite some time now to kind of make champions less and less about their right clicks and more about their active ability buttons. You see this in Yasuo and Yone, and even all the way back to Ezreal and Karthus. I can make a whole video about that though, which to me says that if Zeri does well, I legitimately think she could represent a fundamental design shift in how Riot creates champions in League of Legends and the kinds of things they want their characters to have in game. Which is kind of scary when you think about it that way, but I don't fundamentally think that's a problem. So either way, that is going to be it for my review. I think she's fun. I think she has a lot of potential to be really powerful. I think that even though her win rate doesn't look like it right now, I think she's a kind of champion that in a month or so, people are going to be screaming at Riot for nerfs. And I do think that Zeri is always going to be more of a pro-focused champion than a pub-focused champion at the end of the day. So we'll see how it plays out, though. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like. Let me know what your thoughts of Zeri are down in the comment section below, what you've been building on her, how you've been playing her, and what you think about her state of balance. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. If you enjoyed the video today, like I said, leave it a like. Consider subscribing if you have been enjoying my content. It really does help me out and lets me know that you guys are liking what you're seeing. And, once again, thank you guys so very much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.